How's it going, Critter Family? I hope you all are doing well. Today we are going over a requested video by Joel Beckman, Beckman the Bully as I call him. Trauma can be life-altering. Learn what it is, what it isn't, and how to mitigate the effects of trauma. So, that sounds interesting enough. We're going to go ahead and see what he has to say.
We're not going to say no. The people travel all the time.
No, shove him away.
Hey! All right, we're not going to say no. The people travel all the time. Hey!
See, that's what happens when you shove a dog away. A dog like a giant schnauzer. Don't shove them away like that in the neck. You're going to get a growl. And the dog just said, hey, don't do that. Stop that. And he has to get all, huffy.
All right, this video is becoming what this video is.
Why is he dragging the other dog
about
around?
Trauma and some of the traumas that these dogs have had in their life. What is trauma? What isn't trauma? When is trauma good? When is hardship good?
I don't think it's really ever good.
Hardship because your dog had the easiest life ever.
I don't think it's good for a dog. No one. I mean, it'd be good if no one really had to have trauma. That would be the best thing. But dogs don't necessarily. Even kids and people don't need to have hardships to be able to appreciate a good life. Especially not dogs. If we're just talking about dogs right now, they are dogs. They are not humans. We can spoil them as much as we want. As I always talk about, I spoiled my Shiba. To some people would think he was spoiled, but to others he never had off-leash time because I didn't train him to be reliable. I take accountability for that. But we always had a long line. I gave him the best life that I felt like he could have, and I went without for him. And at times, it was tough, but, I had the hardship, and I made sure that he didn't, because he didn't ask for the life that I gave him. He didn't ask to be in my life. But when it comes to hardships, look, I've been talking about that, I've been through hardships. I've gone hungry at night before. I've struggled. I've sold belongings just to be able to get by. That doesn't make me a better person. It doesn't make me a stronger person. It just means I survived that. I mean, if you want to think about it, you could say, hey, I survived that. I can survive anything. But then there's other hardships. Losing my best friend, being Adonis, losing other friends. There's no glory in surviving hardship, in my opinion. I'm glad that people are able to get out of that, but it would be better, in my opinion, if we didn't have to go through it at all. Being in a human world, that's inevitable. I'm sure at some point in everybody's life they will go through hardships. If they never have to, then I'm happy for them. But the dogs, that's a different story.
This dog, sweetest dog in the world, she acts like a princess because she's had the greatest life.
Why are you holding her mouth? Let go.
From a great breeder to this giant house. She still jumps on people. She's like 8 years old.
Okay.
It's time to say knock it off to this dog who's had the greatest single life of a dog I can imagine.
Lip lick whenever he touches her. This dog doesn't know anything different, and they don't have to. Just because she's 8 years old and she still jumps on people, that doesn't have anything to do with the dog. The dog doesn't need to pay for that. The owners need to be told, hey, knock it off and get your priorities straight. If it's an issue for them, if they don't care if the dog jumps, then they don't care that the dog jumps. If they suddenly do now, because it's become a problem because maybe grandma comes to live with them and they can't have this dog jumping on, an 80-year-old, 90-year-old, then that was their problem that they need to take care of, but the dog doesn't need to pay for it. They need to take the time to teach the dog not to jump. The only thing that with age is that it might take a little bit longer to teach the dog not to jump, but that doesn't mean the dog needs to be told randomly out of nowhere after 8 years, knock it off. That's like living your whole, a dog living their whole life indoors, and then randomly you decide to, get a new puppy, or you change your environment or whatever, and then you leave home and you either give the dog away or the dog ends up spending the rest of their life outdoors. That's not fair to the dog. It's not fair to anybody, in my opinion.
Conor, this dog also had a good life, but guess what?
He had to snap to get the dog to come to him.
How much this dog is with us? Half the year. because his owner travels all the freaking time. Is that trauma? Might be. Probably was when he was younger and he was with us all the time. Probably affect him. Now he comes up and he needs attention. We have to give it to him constantly because he.
I mean, that could be trauma. It depends. We don't know what's going on in the dog's brain. Yeah, I think that sounds like that would be a hardship. I don't know if that's trauma, but I mean, either way, dogs don't care about their past. They don't think about their past. They think about the present and the now. They live in the here and now. But their past can affect their behavior. So if we have, a dog that has been attacked before, they may, they don't necessarily think back to that, but their behavior is ingrained into them that they see other dogs and they become fearful, or they see a certain breed or a color of dog and they become fearful of that. For people that are gone half the year, I don't know why they have a dog. They really need to just rehome this dog so that if it's best for the dog, if they care about the dog, they clearly have beaucoup de money to spend on this guy to board the dog here. And this dog seems happy enough, but
he doesn't know where his home is. Really? What does his dog brain think? Is that trauma? Not knowing who your owner is, to a degree, not knowing which home is really yours, is trauma, especially at a young age. So here's some.
I mean, yeah, again, you can say that. It doesn't mean that the dog necessarily feels that way. I mean, the dog could think that he just has two owners. I mean, you have like two owners at home. If you have a couple that gets a dog, they may separate or break up or whatever, and the dog goes back and forth and back and forth. The dog says, okay, this is my person, this is also my person. This is my home, this is also my home. I mean, could that be traumatic? In the early years, he's right. Yeah, it could be. But I think by now, I mean, I don't quite know where he's getting with this whole trauma, and, trauma stems from traumatic experiences. I don't know that is necessarily traumatic for the dog. It could be confusing, yeah. It can be frustrating, yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily traumatic.
Trauma things that you have probably never thought about. That is extreme trauma. Oh, my dog was hit by a man. I hear it every day.
I would say that's traumatic.
Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Maybe they just never met a man. Then the dog comes into your life, is scared of men. All my clients go, oh, he's probably hit by a man because he's nervous men. No, that's not true. That's not necessarily true.
Why does he always instinctively grab their mouth?
Trauma. Maybe a guy was kind of mean to him. I don't know if that's trauma. You know what is trauma?
I mean, I would say clearly the dog can tell us what is traumatic and what is not. If they were hit by a man or a woman or a broomstick or a sledgehammer, then that's going to be pretty traumatic because they will stay away from those things. The way he trains with dogs, I believe, is traumatic to the dogs. I believe that is causing trauma to the dogs. So his very existence can be, his presence can be traumatic to a dog. Whether or not the dog was hit by a person or not, or they've just never met them, I don't think that's necessarily trauma if they've never been hit by a person, which is good. But they just inexperienced, and that's just lack of socialization.
Being born at an outdoor facility, at a great breeder's house, but it's outdoors. Hearing the other dogs constantly barking when the dog is 1 week old to 8 weeks old. That is sensory overload that affects the nervous system so deeply that it is horrible trauma. But yet, nobody ever seems.
I mean, I can agree with that we don't necessarily know that it is horrible trauma to the dog. I mean, it is just the dog just grows up and they're used to it. It is what it is. Could it be traumatic? Sure. I mean, I don't think it's a great breeder if they have their dogs outdoors from birth until 8 weeks. I mean, leaving their family can be more traumatic than that because they've already been in the environment for 8 weeks and they're used to it, but then leaving at 8 weeks so young, when they can still be socializing with their mother and their siblings and their litter mates and environment for another 8 weeks until they're 16 weeks, that is, leaving so early is traumatic for them. Going on an airplane is traumatic for them.
To think about that. Horrible. Will affect them for the rest of their life.
No, I don't actually believe that. I don't believe that will affect them the rest of their life. If they're that young and that's all they know, I don't think that's going to affect them.
The dog from Hungary, French Bulldog from Hungary, gets on a plane at 8 weeks old, 7 weeks old. The heat under a plane, the sound, the sensory
That can be
overload.
traumatic, yeah.
Dogs get off planes at 8 weeks old after 2 days on a plane from Europe. They are jacked up. 95% of them are completely messed up dogs.
That doesn't mean you can't counter condition them. I mean, he acts like they're ruined.
Extreme trauma that most people don't think about. Hit by a man is nothing compared to getting under a plane.
No, you can't say that. You can't say that. That is, again, he says everything like it's fact. We don't know how each dog will feel.
And thinking you're going to die for 2 days. And what it does to the nervous system. Probably not as bad as 10 dogs barking at a beautiful outdoor facility with concrete walls.
I don't think so.
And sound for 8 weeks till they go to the new home. Probably not. That might be the worst type of trauma. What about bored in a field in Tijuana or Riverside? That's not trauma. You know what is trauma? When that dog finally comes into your home.
You can't say it's not trauma, but yeah, like same with the breeder being born outside. If that's all their life is, and that's just what they know. I mean, they could experience trauma by other predators, other things trying to kill them if they're born in a field, and then their mother leaves them at, I don't know, whenever she goes back into heat again, and the puppies are young and left to, fend for themselves.
And it feels the hard wood and goes, what the hell? And sees the ceiling fan and goes, oh my God, I'm going to die. The trauma isn't being where
I agree with that too, that can be just as traumatic. That would be more traumatic, like racing greyhounds, the greyhounds that are used as to give blood to other transfusions to other greyhounds. They're locked up all day long, and probably multiple dogs to a cell, and they're locked up in there in the darkness, and then people come in, and when you rescue these dogs, they end up having obviously lots of traumatic experiences in their past, so they're reactive to everything, and they have sleep startle where they wake up fighting in fight or flight. They just wake up at the slightest sound. They can wake up and try to attack something, or they just freak out. They take Jenna Marbles, for example, her rescue greyhound Bunny. They've rescued, I'm sure, several greyhounds since then, but their first greyhound, she couldn't be in a cone inside of a crate because she would just freak out. She would run into the walls with it. She was afraid of the TV being on. She's afraid of the fan. She's afraid of everything because she's not used to it. But they slowly conditioned her to be comfortable with it. And, now her and I'm sure a lot of their other little pets are doing great.
Coming to your house. Then there's obvious traumas that maybe you've thought about or maybe your dog has had. This dog's older brother, who we trained since this dog's older brother and this dog since they were puppies, died a week ago. Got put down because he couldn't move anymore. Now, the dog is 9 years old. That's like trauma happening to a 60-year-old person. It is not the same as trauma happening to a 6-year-old person.
I disagree with that. I think with dogs, it doesn't matter about age because they're always a young age. Even if their body ages, their mind is still young, which is why we're able to work with them so well versus like a different species such as a wolf. But I don't care if a dog is 9 years old, they still have a very young mind, the mind of like a 2 or 3 year old. So this dog, having lived 9 years with their best friend or their sibling, and then their sibling is suddenly gone, that can be more traumatic than them losing them at a younger age because they've already missed their other siblings by being moved away from them to being rehomed. So I disagree with that. I don't think that dogs think like a 60-year-old. They're still very young, no matter if they're 12 weeks or 12 years. They still have that young mindset. And if they've had their best friend since for all 9 years of their life, I'm sure that can be much more traumatic than if they were young.
The death of a father to a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old.
That's just human
anthropomorphizing.
anthropomorphizing.
Real trauma. The death of a father when somebody is 60 is not trauma.
You can't say that. You can't say that as if it's fact. I mean, everybody is different, and I feel differently. I think that the dog would be more traumatic to lose their friend later in life than earlier in life.
It shouldn't be a trauma. That's how the
Well,
world
it
works.
is,
If you
though.
haven't wrapped your head around that. It's hard, but it's not trauma.
You
Okay,
can't
so
say that it's
this
not.
dog is not going through trauma. This dog is
You
going
don't know that. We don't know that. I think the dog is. I think the dog could be. The dog could be depressed. Have you ever seen a dog who's had a friend for so many years and then the dog passes away or moves away or something happens, and how the other dog might react? If they're really close, they can act depressed. They can stop eating. They can be lethargic. They can even get sick. They can pass away as well because they give up on life. That's far different than having, a young 1 or 2 year old who's looking for their friend, and they can get a little bit sad. Or maybe they don't even notice, or they don't even really care. Or a very young puppy who just loses their friend, versus having a 9-year-old dog who lost their sibling.
through hardship. This dog may be coming here a lot.
Quit grabbing his mouth, dude. Let go.
Trauma because he didn't know.
He's correcting this dog without even realizing it because he's such a dummy. He's grabbing the dog's upper lip and pushing it into its tooth or its teeth, and he doesn't even realize it.
Which house was his, which is a very weird thing for a dog. This dog has gone through no.
I mean, this
trauma.
dog seems fine. This your silver lab looking dog seems just fine. Like they don't have any problems or quarrels about, they just have multiple homes. Great. I think this dog is going through less trauma now than the other one over there.
Ever. That's why when this dog jumps on anybody, I go knock it off and I grab her and I have no qualms about it.
Well, then you're an idiot.
As that little doodle right there, who has had a wonderful little life.
The dog looks stressed.
I have no qualms about that. However, where's this one? Where's that other one? There's this other dog running around over there. That dog was found in Borrego Springs, one of the hottest
Notice how
places
far away the dog is from him. That's a beautiful dog, by the way. Very, very cute.
in this country, possibly in the
Hi,
world,
sweetie.
under a car at, I think, 7 months old. That dog might have thought it was going to die just from heat alone. Now, maybe it came from someone's
I mean,
house.
maybe, but if that's all that it knows, then it just says, hey, it's really hot outside. It may be close to heat stroke, but if it's developed that they're used to that kind of heat, then they don't necessarily think they're going to die versus a dog that is born in Siberia where it's super cold, and then you take them and put them in the desert. Then they might think they're going to die, and they might very well die.
We don't know. So we have to be a little softer on that dog, understanding it has had trauma in its life, and we don't have to create hardship with that dog.
You don't need to create hardship with any dog. You need some hardship if you haven't already had it, because you sound like you're way too spoiled.
You have to create hardship if your dog has had it easy.
No, you don't.
You know how many golden
You don't have to
retrievers
do
in the animal
diddly
come to
squat.
me? Great breeder. By the way, it's not trauma, but it is hardship to be taken away from your litter mates and your mother.
I think that's trauma, not hardship. He's got it backwards, in my own opinion. I mean, that's his opinion. This is my opinion. You can have a different opinion. I'm sure the animal scientists and behaviorists can have a different opinion. And I would trust their opinion over either of ours.
Maybe your father at 8 weeks old. I don't know where this stupid law came from of 8 weeks old. 8 weeks old, you now can be sold. Can you imagine how difficult that is for a dog to all of a sudden go, I don't sleep
It's
with
traumatic.
my 5 brothers and sisters anymore. I now, and my mom is gone. At 8 weeks old, boom, you're at a new house. And now the new house is crate training you all night in another room. And you're just like, there's no one around. That's why, and I've gotten heat for it, let your puppy sleep in bed with you.
That's one thing I can agree with.
Covers next to you is as close to near his mom, brothers, and sisters that can possibly happen. It's warmth, it's closeness, it's touch.
I agree.
I'd let all my young dogs sleep with me. But then you're never got neutered, full of himself golden, who jumps on the counter and jumps on everybody and does whatever he wants because he's your little baby. He is a jerk at a dog park. That's a whole different deal.
But that dog doesn't need to go through hardship or be abused or use aggressive, aversive techniques with him just because he's never been set, he's never had boundaries set. Because the owners have never, that's not their priority. Their priorities are different. For me, a dog that, jumps or barks is definitely my number one priority to work on versus sit or heel, or having them sit and wait for their meal, or sit before a doorway, or any of that, behavior. To me, I'd much rather work on a dog barking and jumping. That's my priority. For other people, it's something different. But either way, it doesn't mean that the dog has to pay because the owner has had different priorities or has been up in the clouds doing whatever, doodly-darling. And now they suddenly say, okay, now I want it and now I'm going to get it. You're not entitled to that. The human is spoiled.
Hardship. Grab them.
No.
Sit them down.
Don't do that.
You can't be mean to dogs. No, you can.
No, you shouldn't. You can, but you shouldn't. Don't do what this dummy is telling you to do.
You sometimes have to because they've had nobody be mean to them their whole life.
They don't need anybody to be mean to them. You can set boundaries without being mean, you moron. You can set boundaries and limits using positive reinforcement. That doesn't mean that your dog is going to be a jerk just because you use positive reinforcement. If the dog is acting like a quote-unquote jerk at the dog park, it's not because the method failed. It's because the people have failed. Because the people have failed to use the method, or the people have different priorities and they're not working with their dog as they should. The dog is simply being a dog.
They've had it made in the shade.
So why do you care?
The hardship.
No, you're not.
It's the same with children.
No.
If they've had it too damn good...
Why not let them have it good? Just because you've been through hardship does not mean your children need to go through hardship. That's just you being jealous and spoiled and... whatever.
You need to create...
Don't talk about kids.
You guys, okay, deals with Beckman aggression program, Beckman coach. Through most of the trauma. Prince was... came from a great breeder, went to a house, she brought him back to the breeder, then we took him. Not trauma. Not great.
That's more traumatic, I think. Absolutely, that is more traumatic than not. You can say that it's not. I think that's more trauma because he went to what he thought was a home, then he lost his home, and then he goes to a different home, and then he deals with you, and he's raised by you. So that's absolutely traumatic, in my opinion.
You don't want a dog or a kid to have multiple families. It's not great. But he came into a loving house with children
baloney.
And love.
An aggressive, abusive owner.
So there is room for me to say, knock it off, Prince.
No, there's not.
When I say come, you come.
Oh, no, you're an idiot. You are entitled. You are spoiled. When I say come, you come. Screw you, dude. You're not entitled to anything.
Don't do that with the trauma dog, but it's a little different.
No, it's not.
Prince can handle it. He's had a good life.
No, you're just an idiot.
You can't do that with an older dog. But I also did understand that, no, at that point he had had a good life and it was his first time with us. But since then we've had to adjust our methods with Connery because he's with us so much. It's hard on him to be with us all as much as he is. Now, the people travel. We're not going to say no. The people travel all the time.
You can.
Hey!
See, there he is shoving that dog away. He's dragging this other dog around. That was your own fault. The dog told you, knock it off. And guess what? Mr. Entitled Man who has opposable thumbs, who thinks he can do anything he wants to, gets away with it because he's a human. And because he can trap these dogs. Sorry, I won't mess with the mouse.
Video is becoming what this video is.
Why are you dragging Connery around?
This dog came over and said, I want attention. I just talked to you.
That dog came over to go sniff him. And that dog is over here, by the way. I don't know who you're chasing. But that dog came over to sniff the other dog. They didn't want attention from you. He didn't care about you.
I just talked to you about Connery. And
why are you dragging Connery?
Need for love and how it's important. This is a giant schnauzer, as good a guard dog as there is in the world. They're hairy Cane Corsos. He's intact. He's had a great life. He comes over. I push him away, and he growls at me?
Absolutely. You asked for it, and that dog did a good job by telling you, back off. Screw you. You're entitled.
This guy can't come over and growl at me or him because he gets pushed away. That is a
No, he can, and he did, because he's a giant schnauzer, and he doesn't take any nonsense from you.
possibly too damn easy of a life.
No, that's just a giant schnauzer being a giant schnauzer who doesn't take corrections easily or lightly, and I mean, you can easily correct him and he probably won't feel it or care because he's a giant schnauzer, very much like a Shiba, where they're like, hey, I'm going to tell you to respect me. I'm going to demand respect from you. And that's what that giant schnauzer did.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't
know why he's dragging this dog around.
I hope you could. You can't growl at me because you got pushed away because you came in for attention.
No, he didn't come in for attention. He's growling at you because you shoved him away because you're being aggressive. You didn't need to be. And the dog said, dude, piss off. Don't do that. The dog said, knock it off.
I'm going to create the hardship in that schnauzer's life because it needs hardship in its life.
No, because you are a spoiled brat who cannot take any correction whatsoever. You are so sensitive that only you are the one that can correct it. That's why you work with animals. You work with killer whales in a bathtub. You work with dogs in this fenced-in area. You're able to be a bully and manipulate and be aggressive and abuse animals that don't fight back. And when they do, then you take matters into your own hands to make sure they can't fight back, and they won't fight back. You need the hardship. You clearly are having some trauma in your life that you have to take it out on animals.
Weak. There are people running around that have
let go of this dog
in their life, and it shows. And then
what are you holding him there for your bodyguard?
Both character. Trauma does not build character. Hardship builds character. Trauma can build.
No, trauma and hardship do not build character. Not in my opinion. And I've had both. Believe me, I've had plenty of trauma in my life, and I've had lots of hardship. Doesn't make me a better person.
If you can get over it. That's the video.
And they're dogs, they don't need that anyway.
What isn't trauma? It's going to vary from dog to dog. What's trauma to one dog is nothing to another dog. There's just dogs that are like, yeah, I was on the streets, now I'm in a house, I don't care about the hardwood floor, and there's dogs that get on hardwood floor and go, I've never felt this, I feel like I'm going to die. Feeling like you're going to die is trauma. And dogs and kids and lack of security and lack of safety and extreme heats and colds and noise assaults and nervous systems spiking and staying spiked is trauma. And your dog can get over it. And you
I think those are... I think that, depending on the dog, would be more of a hardship than a trauma. But, I mean, I don't know. We can't say because we are not that individual dog. So, I'm going to end that video here. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you got from this video. Let me know what you think of it. If you or your dog have had any traumatic experiences, then I'd, be happy to hear about it. Hopefully you don't have a lot of traumatic experiences, but if you do, or if you ever have, then I hope you've gotten over them and you've been able to recover since then. Adonis and I have had our share of traumatic experiences, him getting out, nearly getting hit by cars, and, that boy was just, he always, kept me on my toes. I was always so worried about him. But anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. I hope you all are doing well. Go say howdy do to your little critters. Say howdy do for me. Give them some kind of love and they appreciate. And until next time, practice peace, patience, and positivity.